Hey low coders, this is Ken with a quick video on how I solved the streak issue. And if you, Marco had made a video about this in our low code group, and what he did, he had a solution. He also made a front end. I don't have a front end for this yet. I'm very new at low code build, actually Glide I'm very new at, and I'm more familiar with the database end of it as of right now, and I'm slowly getting comfortable with doing front end stuff. So if you want to see the good front end stuff, check out Marco's video, but I'll show you what I did here on my to solve this on the back end, and there's a few useful things, and I'll show you a couple of the tools I use too. I have a coding background, so whenever there's a chance to use JavaScript, it's always a little more fun for me, whereas I know a lot of people, if you haven't coded yet, you probably dread it. And but the good news is ChatGPT makes it quite easier. So let's get started here really quick. So I created two tables, a users table, which is given to you by default, and then a submissions table. Submissions is you're submitting your workout details each day. Okay, so I created a submissions table. It has a row ID. It has a text field. So this is just a regular row ID field, okay, that you set up. A workout details section, just a regular text field. A user ID, and this I just manually put in. This NGZ relates back to my user ID that's over here, and then I put one more just to make sure it's pulling the right information. I put one more person in here named Tom Sprint, and set him up too, and he got a workout in apparently. So let's go back to submissions. So I have my workout details, and you could put in what you did for the day, whether chest day or whatever, and you could write details about the workout. I have my user ID, which I just plugged in here, so it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of my own workouts, and this other guy, this is that Tom guy, that's his ID. Okay, he had one workout. Okay, so the workout date, and this you would just put in, like when you set up your front end, you would just put this in, and then a base date, which I guess I'm not sure how this works, but I'm pretty sure you could put a default value in a hidden field and then submit it here. And I put in 1/1/1970. It's always going to be 1/1/1970, and the reason I did this, and this is a date and time, by the way, workout. The workout date is a date time field, just like that. My base date, also a date and time, and again it's short. And I also did respect time zones, and time zones are a little tricky, especially when I was doing this late at night. I guess Glide must be somewhere on the other side of the world, because when I was doing this last night it was the 12th, and in my time zone it was still the 11th, and that could get a little tricky when you're creating this kind of app. So I did a respect time zones, and then what I did was I made sure it was set for my time zone in my JavaScript, and everything came out correct. So it took a little finagling to get it to work right. But so my base date is always going to be 1. And why did I do this? You might be wondering why I did this. And this was another thing I experimented. You could ignore this column here. I actually used the JavaScript to create this date. It did some weird thing, and I'll explain that in a second. But what I do is I create a date difference, which is a math field. Let's take a look at it. Okay, and I wrote this formula called floor workout minus base. And what floor does, there's a floor and there's a ceiling. A floor function basically will take a decimal number. Let's take a number like 2.15, and it'll round it down to 2. If the number is 2.75, with regular rounding, it would round it to 3. But with floor, it always rounds down to 2. So, and ceiling does the opposite. So 2.15 would round to 3, and 2.75 would also round to 3 if you use ceiling. But floor rounds it always down, and that's what I want, just to get the exact number of days. And the precision one, I don't want any decimals here. And that's it. I didn't want to put commas, or it's unnecessary. So so I get the number of days. So the difference is, let's hit done here. So there's my formula. So workout referred to my workout date, and base referred to my base date. And I'm going to hit done. And so this date difference then is taking 7/6/2003 minus 1/1/1970, and I get this date difference here. And you'll see as my days go up, see it's going up consecutively, and I have consecutive numbers. So the main difference between mine and what Marco did in his video for basically solving the same thing was I converted my dates to numbers using this methodology. It required one extra field. So there's probably a little more overhead with mine. But I think it's easier manipulating numbers. So, you know, it might be hard in one place and easier in the other. There's always trade-offs when you're doing these things. So it just depends on your preferences. Now, you might be wondering why I have this one here and this date diff copy. So what I did here, instead, I used a JavaScript to automatically generate the first day of 1970. And this is the little script here. Okay. And I hit done. And so it will automatically, watch, when I hit a new row for a new record, you'll see 1/1/1970. And I thought that'd be a great way to default the date. But then some weird stuff happened, and I'll show you what happened. I'm going to delete this row here. I just wanted to show you how it auto-generates. Whereas this one, you'll have to, in your user interface, you'll have to submit 1/1/1970 as a default. The user doesn't have to see it, and you know you could send it up to the database without a problem. So not a big deal. But over here, you'll see when I tried to take a difference, I'm going to show you date diff copy, and I did the same thing. It's a math field. There's my floor, workout minus base. But this time I took my workout date, same workout date, but I subtracted this new default date that's being generated by JavaScript. The weird part, which I cannot figure out for the life of me, and I guess it's just the way this is generated, and it probably has some weird stuff with hours, minutes, and seconds too that I didn't take into account. Something strange, and if you know the reason, leave a comment, or then I'd be curious to see why it acts so weird. But I get negative numbers, which is fine. As long as the numbers are consistent, like you could see, these numbers are consecutive numbers. The 6 and 7 are one day apart. They're just negative, and that's a pain to work with. So I decided to just leave things be and use this one. But I wanted to just, I'm sorry, I used these two to calculate date diff. So you could ignore these two columns. I'm just kind of experimenting with them. So now that I have those, now comes the calculation in my users table, so I can calculate for the user what kind of streak he had. So let's take a look at mine, for example. Okay, so on mine you'll see I had 6, 7, then I skipped a day, and I worked out 3 days in a row, 7, 9, 7, 10, and then I worked out twice on 7/11, which was yesterday. I did not work out on 7. Oh, I did work out on 7/12. I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry. So I did not work. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. So let's go backwards. So this is me. So that's 7/12, 7/11, 7/10, 7/9, and my first gap here is 7/8. So there should be a 1, 2, 3, 4. So I should have 4 consecutive workout dates. So that should be my streak. And then I skipped the 8th, so I have nothing. Whereas this other guy, which is this guy with the ZZ, he only worked out 1 day, which was yesterday. But it's still the 12th. So he still has a streak going, and he could turn it into 2 if he gets a workout in within the next 28 minutes. So I'm going to keep his streak at 1. Now, if it was already the next day, his streak would be back down to 0. Let's see what they are in my formula. You'll see here's my row, and this is pretty standard stuff with my email and everything. Then what I did here in submission, I grabbed all my submissions. So I'm going to go to submission. I create a relation field, take the row ID of my user field, and compare it to submissions user ID. So we're binding that together, creating that relation, and I'm doing match multiple, which will pull in all my workouts. And this is similar to what Marco did. I'm going to hit done, and I'm going to come over here, And then I'm going to just grab out the days. So this creates these objects for each workout of each particular record. Okay, and then I go into days list. So submission, once again, relation, row ID, and I related it to submission user ID, and make sure you have match multiple checked. Days list basically is going to reference this submission and grab my date diff column. Remember that math column I had there? I'm grabbing what's in that math column, that special number when I subtracted the two dates from each other, from the current date minus the 1970. That's what I'm grabbing here. And I'm grabbing all of them separated by a comma. Actually, it's a comma space. So, comma space. Very important that I did it that way. If there was no space, it's fine. It works fine. But you got to be sure if you actually have a space, you got to make sure you separate it correctly. It might mess up your JavaScript. But anyway, the way you can notice there's a space, you'll see comma, and I see my cursor went over one. Not terribly important. The important thing is here, so you'll see there's a little space between each number. It actually makes it a little easier to read. And there's my days list. And you'll notice it goes in ascending order. So basically the most recent date is at the end. Okay? So technically when I do a script on this, this is my current date and I need to look backwards. Okay? So my JavaScript's going to do something, a couple clever things to get things working right. And you'll notice here's our streaks. If you remember, I said, and this is where my JavaScript goes. Now, this was my old script, and this is my new script that I wrote. And this one that says copy here is much better, so I'm going to show you that one. And let's go and take a look at that. I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to leave this script in the comments. So I'm going to go to edit, and this is the script. And to be honest here, I did a couple things. I had ChatGPT write this for the most part. I was having issues with the time zones because remember I'm in the Eastern time zone. So the first thing I did was make sure that my current date and my target date, okay, so I have a function here. And if you don't know JavaScript, you don't have to worry about this. You can just copy this script. This thing works pretty good. Just to give you an idea what this does is if there's no workouts at all, it needs to just return 0 in the box. So that's what it does immediately. The next thing it does is a check over here to see if there's a gap of more than a day. And if there's a gap in more than one day, it's also going, see if it says greater than or equal to 0. So if that happens, if it's greater than, so it's going to also return 0. So this whole bunch of code up here basically is just to check if there's a gap or if there's no workouts whatsoever. Just return 0 because there's no streak going. The real magic actually happens right here. So the formula is actually fairly short. And then this was just actually an example down here, and you don't even need this code. I don't know why I left this here. That was weird, I guess. So I'm going to delete that. This is what I want. So basically this formula, if you compare this formula to the formula that, and it starts right here and goes to here, and basically this is what calculates your streak, and once it's done, it returns this consecutive count if there's this consecutive count. The minimum consecutive count is just 1, so there we go. So and my P1, I'm passing in my days list. Okay, and my last workout date is what I'm passing in. Okay, so and this is a roll up here. Oh, what I'm doing, my last workout date being, I'm taking the maximum, and let me show you that really quick here. So I don't think I see I have last workout date here. Last workout date is a roll up. And from submission, I just grab I grab the latest date. So I chose my workout date field from my submission table and looked up my and again, this is the relation of submission. that I have. So I have all the objects related to my submissions. And then I chose the latest one. And you'll see I worked out on the 12th. Okay, and there's my list, 6th through the 12th. I also made this also a list. Rather than numbers, I also included the dates if I wanted to include them. So here's the number representation, and here's the date representation. So just some extra things I threw in there if you're interested in that. And there's my last workout date. So my last workout date was 12, and then I pass it into my JavaScript using this formula. And you just make sure you do type, get the function. If you don't write it, you know, you could always ask people in the group to what you're trying to do. It seems like a very friendly group, always helpful. So what I did here, you'll notice it says numbers array, set, split. Basically, it takes the comma separated values and makes it an array in Java so it can be manipulated. And then I sort it from highest number to lowest. So remember, it goes from lowest to highest in my list. See the lowest date to the highest date, or if you're looking at the numbers, the lowest number to the highest number. So basically I take that, reverse it. I also remove, I forget where I did that. It's been a while here. So I do a sort, and I also remove any duplicates. So if you work out twice in a day, it'll handle that as well. From what I remember, I believe I tested that as well. So it does a few things here that makes it pretty solid. So and it worked pretty well. And we'll test this now. So again, I pass in my list, and then I pass in my latest workout date, and this function figures out whether there's a gap or not. So if I pass in like a workout date, let's say my last workout date was the 9th and it's the 12th. Well, it's gonna hit over here where it says date difference greater than 2. That means there's been 2 days difference between the current date and my last workout date. So it's going to say I don't have a streak going, which is correct. But since I do have a streak going, and when I hit done here, you'll see it says 4. So let's play with the numbers here real quick, see if it works. So let's say, for example, I'm going to get rid of 712. Now if I get rid of my 712 workout, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this, it should give me, I worked out the 711, 10, and 9. It's still going to give me, still should give me a 3. Let's see if it does. And there it does. It still gives me a 3 because I could still work out, it's still the 12th. So what the formula does, it gives me the benefit of the doubt that it's the 12th, that I could still work out on this day and it would still be a consecutive day. Once it hits the 13th, there's going to be a gap though. So, and that's how I wanted it programmed. So we could test that out. So that's the 11th. But what if I get rid of my 11th? So I'm going to do that. Okay, so now my last workout, and remember this is the other guy, not me. So I worked out the 6th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 10th. So over here then, here's the 10th, okay? So with the 10th, now it's the 12th. So I had to, even if I do work out today, my streak currently, I haven't worked out today yet. It's not in the list. So I already blew my streak. I skipped a day. So let's see what I get. Now I should get 0 because, right, my current streak is 0. Okay, and that's correct. Now I also want to show you another thing. So you notice it says 1 for this guy here. This is this ZZ guy. So he worked out on the 11th, okay? So it correctly shows for him just 1 day in the list, and it's fine because he could technically work out today and it'll jump to 2 and continue his streak. He has till midnight. That's how I made it. So, but what would happen if he didn't work out at all? Okay, and these are scenarios. When you're creating these apps, you have to test these scenarios. What happens if there's nothing in there? What if there's, you know, you have to test the consecutive days. What if it's yesterday is the last day and not today? It always should work. and give you the proper number. And sometimes it gets a little tricky. So I'm going to get rid of Tom. This is Tom Sprint. He starts with ZZ, as you can see here. That's Tom Sprint. So I'm going to get rid of this real quick, and I'm going to say delete. So now Tom has no workouts. These are all my workouts now. If I come here, Tom should also be reading 0 because he hasn't started yet. And lo and behold, 0. And that's why, if you notice, it says current streak 2. That's where my old formula was wrong. I'm not even going to bother showing you my old formula. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete this real quick because it just doesn't work the way I want it to. So now both of us have no streaks going. So what if I worked out twice on the 10th? Would that screw me up? Let's find out. Let's create a new row, and I'm just going to call this arm day, and I'm going to copy my ID, and I'm going to say 710 again. Maybe I had a second workout on here, and I hope I accounted for this. I can't remember if I did or not. It was late last night when I did this. And then here I have to type in 1/1/1970, and there's my 19/548. Since I worked out the same day, these are the same numbers. Now the question is, how many consecutive days did I work out? Well, the same amount. It should still say 0, right? So let's make sure. Yep, still says 0. So now let's add 7/11. Okay, so we'll add another workout day. We'll call this leg day. We'll copy down my ID, and on 7/11, and this of course is going to be 1/1. Actually, I could just copy it. There we go. So now it's still the 12th. Okay, I got 15 minutes to get my workout in on leg day. So 19. So I should have a streak going because I still can continue. So my streak now is the 9th, 10th. So I should have a 3 in there. Let's hope and pray I have a 3. Not, I got to change my code. Look at that. I got a 3. So that's correct. So that looks good. And then if I add the 12th, let's say this is going to be abs. It'll be a 15-minute abs day, and we're going to do again. We're going to do here 7/12/2023. I'm going to copy this down, and now that takes care of today's workout. So what should it be now? Well, I worked out the 12th, I worked out the 11th, twice on the 10th, and once on the 9th. Let's make sure I have a streak of 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, there it is, current streak 4. So like I said, this is pretty solid. I really put a lot of time into making the script and checking it. One thing I'd recommend, just coming from a coding background, a lot of people don't put the time in to test a lot of scenarios. They'll say, oh, my code works because you just tested one scenario and you get the number you want. Make sure you do a lot of different scenario testing. I play around with this. When I must have played with this for about 20-30 seconds, putting in all kinds of different scenarios, just like I was doing now. See what happens if you put a third workout in there. Maybe someone's really ambitious and does a morning, afternoon, and evening workout, and they want to log it, or maybe they take 3 walks a day. And what would happen if you put a third one? Well, it shouldn't matter because I get rid of duplicates. So my streak counting will count 3 workouts as just you worked out that day, and your streak continues. So it doesn't, it doesn't increase your streak. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I'll put the formulas. If you have any questions for me, please ask. Also, if you need any help with JavaScript, I'm here to help. I will tell you, a lot of times I'll get results from ChatGPT. I use that quite often. And a lot of times it works, but it kind of falls short here and there, or depending on how you prompt it, it just might not be what you're looking for, or it just doesn't plug in correctly to glide as you want it to. So if you need any help with that, let me know. I've spent a lot of time with this right now, and I've gotten the hang of it. Now I just need to get better at the front end, and that's why I didn't want to do any front end tutorial, because I'd probably embarrass myself. So that's why. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.